We want the crowd to follow us. We want the crowd to like us. We do. I do, you do. Let's be honest, we do. So that's what we want. But we're so afraid of that crowd not liking us, we sit down. That's what we do. We sit down with the crowd. We sit in the crowd, then get frustrated at why we're not on the stage. Welcome to the Mindset, Marketing and Money podcast, hosted by me, Dean Seddon. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. So we're going to talk about 9 big mistakes people are making on LinkedIn and continually make. And believe it or not, most of these problems are nothing to do with LinkedIn itself. They're actually human problems that stop people from achieving success. And when I'm coaching people or when people come to me, they often say, Dean, I've been trying LinkedIn. I've been struggling to make it work. It's not working for me. And it's never anything to do with the platform. It's never anything to do with the platform. It's primarily more to do with how they are choosing to approach the platform. So what I thought I'd do in this episode is actually talk about what really is causing these issues and what are the kind of major mistakes that I'm seeing people do on LinkedIn. So they're in no particular order, but I thought I'd talk about it, break it down, and explain why this is a problem. We're going to start with the biggest one. Many people will be in one of two camps. Like the majority of people are in one of two camps. They're either massively over promoting and every post, everything they do is sell. And of course that drives people away. So nobody wants to hang around somebody who's just promoting. And I see people do this all the time on LinkedIn. Even in 2024, people are over promoting all the time. So that's the first part, is they're over promoting. That means nobody wants to hang around them. Nobody wants to pay attention to them because they know everything's a sales pitch in some way, shape or form. So that's the first group of people I see. And they lose visibility if that's all they're doing in their content. And nobody will connect with them because they'll see that that's all they're doing. In other words, they're basically using LinkedIn as a broadcast channel, but it's like a broadcast channel with a broken transmitter because everybody knows it's just pumping out TV ads 24/7 or radio ads. So that's one extreme here of they're over promoting. But also there's the other extreme of this is they're under promoting. So I see this just as much as I see the over-promoting is people posting content about their journey, people posting content about giving tips and helpful advice and all this kind of good stuff. But if I scroll through their feed, if I look through their profile, I won't find any clues about what they're selling, how it works, who it's for, nothing. And I see this all the time. And I don't know why people do this. It's obviously something in their brains that stops them doing this. But it's a massive error, as big an error as over-promoting. So in the over-promoting scenario, you're losing in visibility. You're losing your visibility because you're over-promoting. In the under-promoting scenario, you're gaining visibility potentially, but actually nobody knows what you do. And on average, every individual, this works across the board. So it's not special case for you or anything like that. This works across the board. Somebody would need to see your offer 7 times to consider it. And I see this all the time. People thinking, oh yeah, well, I'll just message them and then they'll book a call with me and I'll tell them what we do and I'll put a quote in and they'll buy. People need to see it multiple times to warm to it. So most people will avoid posting about it. A lot of people will do this and then wonder why nobody understands what they do, wonder why nobody's making inquiries, wonder why it's very hard to convert the inquiries they get, is because there is no buyer education happening. People will talk to you much later in the process than ever before. So it used to be that people would approach you and have a conversation to find out what you do and hopefully it would go somewhere. No, people are talking later. And so the fact that you're depriving them of ways to understand what you do, think about it. If you could get people to know about what you do before you go on a call, how much easier is your call? If people know what you do, they can see that, oh, it's relevant to me. And so we deprive the traffic we get to our profile, the traffic we get from our content, we deprive them of actually knowing how we can help. And then wonder why nobody's engaging, nobody's converting. 7 times they would need to know what exactly you're selling and start to consider it. 7. Not once, not twice, 7. So does that mean you just start posting promos every day? No, but it does mean you have to use your profile and some of your content to actually communicate, hey, I do this, this is how it works, this is the problem it solves, and this is your next step if you want to know more. You've got to have that in place. So many people avoid it and then wonder what the hell's going on. Another big thing, that was number 1, right? Another big thing that I see a lot of people doing is trying to copy influencers. And I've got kind of frustrated with myself here because I don't fully know how to articulate this, but let me try and break this down. So we're human beings, right? Surprise, surprise. We're human beings and we are very emotional, psychological creatures. There's things that we do that we don't fully understand why. We are creatures of behavior. Our emotions influence what we do, the works. So influencers are basically rely on a few things to get you to do what they want to do. Now, many influencers will not even know what they're doing. But to influence, you have to do a couple of things. You have to inspire and help people aspire. And part of it, you have to make them uncomfortable and unhappy about where they are. So I nickname it the Be Like Me Brigade. But that effectively what influencers model is I'm successful. I've got the answers. You don't. Be like me. That's the model that influencers work under. Now, influencers have the benefit of something called the halo effect. In other words, if you're famous, you can do any old crap and get away with it. So in other words, think about it. If you're a world famous celebrity, you can post morning on social media and loads of people will reply back morning. Why is that? Well, that's where the halo effect really comes into it because people attach themselves to a person and the crowd, the group, basically the herd, the sheep, jump on board. So if you've got this scenario where you're using envy, inspiration to create aspiration and drive action, whether that be reactions, comments, purchases, you're driving reactions, they have to fundamentally dissatisfy you with where you are. So when you look at that influencer post of somebody giving advice that you thought was pretty basic and wonder why is everybody loving on it, part of it is because it's not the advice itself. They want to be like that person. They want the results of that person. And so they're jumping on it because of that reason and they're not satisfied. It creates a reaction. And the other reason is the halo effect that, wow, I'm successful here, so obviously you should follow me and be successful too. And a bit of greed and envy and all that stuff's in place. So naturally, when we see an influencer giving us advice, we trust it because the crowd has supported it. So we think maybe we should do that because it's working for them. If we translate it, doesn't work. And we think it will work. We think copying that influencer will work, except we don't have the halo effect. We don't have the momentum behind the account. And I would argue that it's easier in one sense for most influencers to post anything, to do anything. It's easier because they have the benefit of momentum. You try to do that with 1,000 connections, you will struggle. So influencer advice does not translate to ordinary accounts. You can pick up tidbits and, maybe I should tweak a little bit there. You can pick up tidbits, but the majority of it will not translate. It only translates if you're an influencer. Really does. Only translates if you're an influencer. The other thing about copying influencers, which is a major mistake, is most influencers are monetizing themselves in some way, shape, or form rather than selling services. So an influencer might be selling or promoting a product. An influencer might be selling marketing. Quick tip, it's so easy to sell marketing on social media. It's not as easy to sell something a bit different. And so what happens is advice from influencers selling marketing gets peddled out, doesn't translate as well. So influencers can be useful. They can give us little tidbits of information, but ultimately trying to copy them will lead to disappointment. But that human psychological stuff kicks in and we see that and want to jump on the bandwagon. And that is a major distraction for people. Rather than building the systems that makes them successful, they try and copy somebody else. And worse than that, they try and copy somebody else who's at a totally different stage to them. So what works at the beginning on LinkedIn may not work when you get a bigger account. And what works when you've got bigger, more reach, more impact, may not work when you've got no impact or no reach or you're struggling to get it. And we miss this point. And so people will spend months, weeks, years going down the rabbit hole of trying to replicate or copy or become similar to a particular influencer, never realizing that what got them there is not what they're doing today. If you want to find out what made somebody successful with 1 million followers, you need to go back to what did they do when they had 10,000 followers? What did they do then? And let me just say, some of the influencers have either a massive media machine behind them or they did things when things were a lot easier. They got to a potential when it is a lot easier. So I'd argue some of their tactics to get there probably wouldn't work today anyway. So copying influence is a big one. Now, I've got two angles to this next one that I'm going to cover. The first one of these, point number 3, is not niching down. Oh, this gets me so much. So much. Again, that human part of us, that psychological, emotional, all that kind of stuff, basically beats our logic. People don't niche down. They actively avoid niching down. Some people say they'll niche down, then don't. Niching down is probably the simplest and easiest way to get to revenue on LinkedIn. But people won't do it. They'll fight it. They'll literally say they're going to do it and then not do it. And I see this a lot and it drives me insane because I know what they are doing is basically making their lives harder. They are choosing to make it more difficult. And it doesn't matter how much you say, there is an emotional issue, an indecision going on in their brains that they cannot reconcile. And it is a fundamental flaw of humanity. Bigger is better, smaller is worse, or less effective, or not as good. So we think bigger is better, smaller is better. More expensive is better. Cheaper is better. Yeah, we think that instinctively. Right? But when you look in society, right, there are companies like Rolls-Royce who sell very expensive things. They don't sell as many cars as Ford. Their cars are 10 times the price. But they are a very good and well-run and successful business. And then you have Ford selling multiple models, tens of thousands, millions of cars a year. Now, when I put those analogies together, Ford and Rolls-Royce, and say who has the better car, most people will say Rolls-Royce. But when it comes to their business, they screw themselves up and go, Ford. Yeah, if we sell 10 cars, 10 different cars, and sell 1,000 of them each, we'll do well. So, niching down, people don't do it because they think they'll have more success with more cars, more models. They think they'll have more success appealing to families, working people who just need a cheap runaround, and people who want 4x4s. They are trying to appeal to everybody. And they can't do it. Most of the time, they can't afford to do it. Think about it. Ford, how much money did they need to spend on advertising to appeal to all these different audiences? How many people do they need to do all of that stuff? Loads more. How many people do Rolls-Royce need to market Rolls-Royces? Nowhere near as many as Ford. Nowhere near. Now, Rolls-Royce makes good profits. Ford makes good profits. But it's a question of resource. It's a question of time. The reason why you should niche down is not because you want to niche down. It's not because you feel you should niche down. It's because it's a smart thing to do. If you cannot resource a full-on marketing machine to basically help you appeal to all of those different segments, you shouldn't try. You should try and take on one market segment, one niche, one category, and own it. But people don't, because what if I miss out on a sale? These fictional sales, fictional leads, fictional customers don't exist. You've made up in your head to justify not niching down, when you can look across the world at examples of where niching down has worked. So people don't do it for the fear. I'm going to lose out. I'm going to miss out. Or I don't know which niche to pick. Do your research and then you just have to pick. It's tough love, this one, because some people go, yeah, I want to do this, but I want to do that. I want to do this. I want to do that. Well, staying in the middle of the road is a recipe to get run over. Standing in the middle of the road, trying to decide, all the time you're trying to decide, you are not making progress. And so middle of the road stuff gets you run over. And so you've got to pick something and go all in on it, build a reputation for it, become known for it, become trusted for it, become the go-to for it. And that might be very, very small, niche, but you can do very well because you can command higher prices because you're the expert at just that thing for that audience. And you can make a much bigger impact by doing that. You'll make a deeper impact. Whereas if you try and appeal to multiple decision makers, multiple audiences, you've got maybe multiple problems to solve. We'll come to that bit later. You actually you dilute it. So a bit like when you get the cordial from the shop and you drink it and it's really strong, and it shocks you how strong it is when you drink it neat. Water it down. We want to be as strong and as potent as possible to make an impact, because most people cannot afford the drag, the energy, and the momentum they would need to build to do all of those things with multiple problems, multiple audiences, and multiple types of decision maker. So I'm going to come to a second part to that in a moment. Fourth one. Staying middle of the road. Now, I know I mentioned middle of the road a minute ago, but this is slightly different. Some of you have got strong opinions about things that you don't share. And instead, what you do is you water down your message because you don't want to offend people, you don't want to get trolled, you don't want to do this. So a fear of some negative consequence stops you from saying what you really think. Now, I'm not talking about attacking people here or going off at people. I'm talking about people who have strong opinions about their industry, some bad practices maybe, the culture, a way of doing things, how a problem is solved. All of these things are in everybody's industry, and some people avoid sharing what they truly think and how they truly feel, even being vulnerable, because of the imaginary negative consequences they've conjured up. The truth is that the more honest you are, the more open you are, the more you are yourself, the more you say what you think, the more you will build a loyal following. So the opposite is often true. The fear that's holding you back is the thing that's stopping you getting what you really want. So Think about it. I'm afraid if I say this opinion, people might not like me. Actually, not saying that opinion is stopping people from liking you. So our fear of what might happen if we say something negative, it's more likely that being honest, being open, being vulnerable, sharing your opinions, standing up for something will actually draw people to you. It will actually connect you more deeply to the people you want to do business with. So the fear stopping you because of negative consequences, them staying middle of the road is the problem. Like, it's boring. You will be boring. If you just say things that, like, everybody could say, and there's no personality in it, no opinion in it, no you're taking it, it's boring. It's boring. You can Google that information. You can chat GPT can give you that information. There's no need to connect with you. There's no need to align with your worldview, your vision, your opinion, because it's just words. It's just information. It doesn't mean anything. So this whole staying in the middle of the road is just a disaster if you do this. But people are so wrapped up with what if. And, it's funny because, some of these are really hard for me to articulate as well, because it's like, I see this and I'm going, okay, this is one of those times when people get stuck in, torn between two places. They want to be front on the stage, leading the charge, sharing their ideas, and the crowd listening to them. We all want that. We all want to do that. Most of us want to do that. We want the crowd to follow us. We want the crowd to like us. We do. I do. You do. Let's be honest. We do. Right? So that's what we want. But we're so afraid of that crowd not liking us, we sit down. That's what we do. We sit down with the crowd. We sit in the crowd and then get frustrated at why we're not on the stage. So we have this kind of inner conflict whereby I want to be on the stage. I want to share what I really think. Well, guess what? Let me give you a tip. You won't share what you really think on the stage if you can't share it when you're in the crowd. Because what happens is, on social media, we think something happens, we get to this platform and we can say what we really think. That's what we think will happen. Something magical will happen. We'll end up further ahead than everybody else, and everybody starts looking at us, and then we can say what we really think. That's what we imagine will happen. Gut instinct. That's what we're waiting for. That's what we're hoping for. That's it. What really happens is you start shouting in the crowd, and the crowd starts to turn and look at you. That's what happens. So we're waiting for a moment to be invited on the stage and being given a round of applause and everybody giving us a fair hearing, and then we can say what we really think. That's what we're waiting for, the invite, the welcome Dean to the stage moment. When actually what happens is we're all stood in a room and you've got to start saying stuff that people go, I've got an opinion about what he's saying. I've got an opinion about it. And for the vast majority of people, they've not come to that realization that they've got to do this. They've got to get to this point where, I'm going to start saying what I actually think. I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to do it in my personality. I'm going to embrace who I am and do this and start standing for something. That most people haven't realized that. And they're waiting for that moment to be invited on the stage. They're waiting for some lucky break rather than just standing where they are and the crowd starts to turn and pay attention to them. But think about it. If you are not creating a reaction in people, you are just irrelevant. Totally irrelevant. I would argue, and this is horrible to say, that, let me just say it like this. Even people who are creating negative reactions are getting more attention than most people for being middle of the road. Now, we're constantly afraid of what happens if we get negative reactions. Real negative, ongoing negative reactions, right? Terrified of it. The reality is it's probably the breakthrough we would need. Now, I'm not advocating you become a troll on the internet. It doesn't have to be that way. But if you don't share what you really think and stand for something, you will never draw a crowd who love what you do. You'll never build a fan base who will support every piece of content you do, back you, the works. It just won't happen. So you've got to get off the middle of the road. You're just going to get run over, right? And everybody else will just not pay attention. So start standing for something. You're studying the crowd. You're in a mass sea of people. Everybody's watching and looking to watch somebody else. That's the majority of the population want to watch and follow somebody else. You want to lead. It's time to lead in the crowd. Start making some noise, standing for something in the crowd, and watch the crowd turn and start to pay attention to you. That's how this game works. Anyway, before I get on. Number 5, no plan. No actual plan. A few months ago, I was talking to a client of mine, and I said to them, I always say when somebody comes on my accelerator, I say, you've got to have a written down plan. Write down what you're going to do, what days. I'm not going to spoon feed you. You're a grown adult. You know what the mechanism is. We give you a model and a diagram of the mechanism. You have to write down your plan. Then, caught up with this client. They hadn't written a plan. And I said to them, part of their plan was to convert people through LinkedIn audio events. And I said, how many audio events have you done in the last few months? 1. And what was the plan again? I think I was going to do 1 a month. Okay. And in 3 months, you've done 1. Why is that? I've just been busy. I said, how's your revenue? It's not good, actually. No plan. So people think, oh, plan, I've got it in my head. I'm just going to do an audio event every month, blah, 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 do the process. And then they cock it up because they didn't write it down. And so they forget things, they miss things, they skip steps, they don't do the work properly, and then it fails. So that's one example. But if you don't have a written down plan, it's easy to get distracted. 2, it's easy to forget things. But more importantly, you will lose time because so much time will go between actions because you're relying on memory. I made this mistake for a long time. I have a really good memory. I can remember weird things like long numbers and all sorts. I have a really good memory. But I know if I'm busy, I will drop the ball. I will drop things. I will miss things. And so having a plan and a routine to look at that plan, diarizing the actions, is like essential. You know, for most people, they're not mega rich, sat on money where they can just literally not win business for weeks and months and let weeks and months go by. But it's surprising how many people let that happen because they don't have their daily actions diarized. And so events overtake them. They get busy with paperwork, and so they put off the LinkedIn stuff. They get busy with family stuff, so they put off the LinkedIn stuff. And if you want the kind of freedom of having great clients and a thriving business, you cannot put this stuff off. Written down plan, take it seriously. Take it seriously. A written plan. I need to do this action. Even checklists in your diary. Task lists. All of that stuff becomes absolutely essential to getting any form of success. Which brings me to number 6. There's a lot of people who want big results. I want big results. I always want big results. But then I see people treating social media like a toy. They play with this toy for a bit, then they play with this toy for a bit. Like, if I wanted to build a serious revenue stream from TikTok, I'm going to have to invest serious amounts of time if I want a long-term payoff. But what do people do? They look for hacks and tricks and tips. And all of those hacks, tips and tricks can be helpful, but you're going to have to put the work in. You're going to have to do some stuff that flops. You know, I say this with people on LinkedIn. I said, every post is an experiment. Every post that you create is an experiment. So use it that way. Use it that way. But no, we get emotional about it. We overinvest in things. We pin our success on little tiny trinkets rather than lots of things working together. So we think, if I just post loads of content, I'll get loads of clients and loads of business. It's a lie. It's a myth. It doesn't happen that way. You have to be more than that. It's not just posting content. It's about having a really good offer on the back end. It's about having a really good process to convert people. It's about growing your network with the right people. It's about targeting the right people. It's about the right message. It's all of those things. But it's also Who are you and how does it work for you? So I see a lot of people flippantly using LinkedIn, playing with it, but not really taking it seriously, not seeing it as a core activity to build their business. And you know that those people are a bit flaky. It's not going to go anywhere. And in 6 months' time, they're going to be in exactly the same position because they just get suckered into shiny object, shiny object, shiny object, rather than going, I need to build a system here. I need to settle on something, research it, put the work in. I want a long-term payoff. I want lasting success. That means I have to do the work to build lasting success. I can, there's a million different tactics I could give somebody on LinkedIn to get something, a quick fix, but it won't necessarily work long term. And so you'll be jumping to the next quick fix, the next quick fix, the next quick fix. That's exhausting. That's exhausting. And it doesn't build something that lasts. And sadly, what most people will do is look for the shiny object rather than do the work. They want that success. They want to stand on that stage and say, it's about commitment and pushing through and making the big decisions for the long term. They want all of that stuff, and they would actually say that. But then when it comes to their day-to-day actions, it's like, oh, wow, somebody's just offered me this for $27 about a LinkedIn hack. I'll buy that and do that. Oh, somebody's just done this. I'll do that. You can't play with it. It's a business. Using a social media is part of your business. It's not a toy or a plaything. My social media when I'm doing things personally is fun. I do it for fun. But when I'm doing it for business, totally different. Okay, number 7. People focus too much on the content. Now, obviously, social media is a content publishing platform, but it's actually primarily social. Social media. Yeah. So think about that. It's a relationship building platform. And you can build relationships through content. You can, do all of that stuff. There's nothing to say you can't do that, but that's got to be your goal. But fundamentally, for most people, it's about building know, like, and trust and getting people off the platform onto a sales or discovery call. That's what we're doing. And so if content helps you do that, brilliant. But it doesn't have to be that. And this lie about content is king, it's total nonsense. Relationships are king. And content is a tool, one of many tools, to do that. But content itself is not king. It's a lie. It's totally made up. So focusing on content first, without building the systems and the plan and the process to actually convert people, means you are going on a journey of discovery of how do I post content that will actually convert. And nobody can teach that. That is a journey you have to learn. So yes, content's brilliant. I love posting content. I love creating graphics in Canva. I'll spend hours doing it. But I know that content is not going to be the primary driver of my success. And the quicker you understand that it is a tool, a means to an end, it isn't the end itself, you should then be asking, well, should I be doing content? Is it the best thing to do? Is it the best thing for me to do right now? So 9 times out of 10, when somebody joins my accelerator, I'll actually say to them, don't stress about the content. The best thing you can do with your content in the first few months of being on the accelerator is actually just study what works for you. Learn, experiment, test things, play around with things, and figure out what works for you. Because that's not critical to your overall success. What's critical to your overall success is you have a system to convert people and get those calls. That's the primary goal. So content can help, but I encourage people that that's not the first thing that they should be doing on LinkedIn. There are far more effective things they can do to drive sales, leads, and clients. So don't get sucked into creating content if your primary objective right now is leads and clients. Play a longer term game with content, a little bit of effort every day, rather than, loads of effort at the front end thinking it's going to move the needle massively. Play a 1% improvement game with that. Now, number 8 is the second part of what I said earlier, which is about the niching down, but this one has a slightly different angle. And it's not deciding what they're selling. Yeah, I know that sounds absolutely crazy. There are so many people on LinkedIn who haven't yet decided what they're selling. So, let's say I can help people with LinkedIn. I can help people with content. I can help people with email marketing. I can help people in a lot of ways. Why do I focus on LinkedIn? Because it's a clear problem people have. Like, for a long time, I was a freelance marketing consultant, so I'd get involved in lots of different projects. Social media was a big part of it, but it wasn't the only part of it. And so I found that really difficult to sell because I couldn't hang my hat on any particular problem. And so my messaging was quite weak. My communication, the clarity I could give people was very weak. And so instead, I had to think about, I can't cut through here because the problems I'm solving, or the problems I can solve, I'm flitting between talking about different problems. And so one day I might appeal to one buyer and the next day I might appeal to another buyer. And so I'm creating noise because half of my content, or 3/4 or 90% of it, 90% of my message was irrelevant to a small section of my audience. So the reality is we can all solve multiple problems, right? We can all solve multiple problems. But as soon as you decide to solve a specific problem and you really double down on solving one specific valuable problem, the faster you can actually cut through. So for an example, if you are a productivity person, productivity coach, say, there's lots of different productivity things you can help people fix. But one of them that could be extremely valuable is solving the problem of getting double booked all the time. So you're constantly double booked, or you're getting in lots of back-to-back meetings and can't seem to end this cycle where there's no time to actually do the work because you're on meetings all the time. So imagine if you're a productivity coach and you just zeroed in on that whole problem of you're on back-to-back meetings, there's no time to actually get the work done. Here's how I'm going to help you fix that. Versus, hey, do you want to be more productive? I can help you manage your diary better. I can help you communicate more clearly. I can help you plan your time and projects better. It's much harder to resonate when you literally start mixing up who you're working with and mixing the problems you're solving. So solve one flipping problem, one very defined, clear, painful problem that is hurting people who have the money to pay for it. One problem, one specific problem, you will make a lot of progress. So they don't decide what they're selling. And the third part to this is they don't decide on a problem to solve, a specific problem, and they don't decide on a mechanism to actually a model or a methodology or an approach to fix it. And this comes from the sense of somebody's got a problem, they'll come to me and I'll give them medication on there. It's much easier if you define the problem you're solving and then define a mechanism of how you will solve it. And you put it out there in the public domain. So in other words, I'm going to solve this productivity diary clashing, no time to do work because you're constantly on meetings. I'm going to solve it through a 4-week program, or I've got a piece of technology that will help you solve that stuff. You can literally choose how to solve the problem. And people think, well, what if people don't like that solution? I can offer another solution. Well, you want people who buy into a solution. If you want freedom in your business, you need a repeatable process. It's much easier to sell the solution for one problem, like a factory. You solve one problem with one gadget and then you mass produce that gadget. What most people try and do is become the custom-made everything. And we think because sometimes we're selling services that we have to be everything custom. It's actually a recipe to a totally unsustainable business. Actually, what you want to do is have a factory model. People coming to you for the same problem, same specific problem, you can build up specific resources, you can build up a specific process and program to help them fix that problem, and then people can sail through it. The factory model of selling services is the easiest way to scale something. One person coming in with a problem, you understand that problem so well, you've seen every issue under the sun, so you can build the resources around it to help them fix it. And so the niching down piece that not deciding what to sell and also avoiding solving one problem all combine into a lack of clarity. And if you can't be clear in your own mind, how can you communicate that clarity to your target audience? And this is the biggie here, right? Most of the challenges you face on LinkedIn have zero to do with LinkedIn. In fact, if you went to email, you'd have the same problem. If you went to paid ads, you'd have the same problem. These problems transcend LinkedIn. They apply whatever platform you use. And until you get that clarity, until you settle some of these issues that are actually in you rather than in your business most of the time, you cannot succeed, not just on LinkedIn, but anywhere. Now, these have been tough things to talk about, but I'm talking about it because hopefully some of you who go, yeah, I do that, this is your wake-up call. This is the moment where you can go, I need to change that. And I encourage you, one of the first things you should do is actually say that to yourself. I like shiny objects, and those shiny objects distract me from my goals. I get afraid of losing out by niching down or not deciding what to sell. I get afraid of doing that because I might lose something. But I know that that's costing me. The first thing to do is admit it to yourself. Write it down somewhere so that when you come to that point, you can try and give yourself a check. And then you have to be ruthless with yourself. You have to go beyond motivation, beyond inspiration. You have to get discipline. And every time you find yourself doing it, you have to stop. And that's hard. Discipline is hard, but it is success. Nobody gets success without discipline. Nobody. So I hope you found this helpful. Hopefully it's helped you see that maybe some of these things are blocking you and stopping you. And my goal with this episode was to show you these, to maybe give you a little bit of a mirror to look at, so that you can get control of these issues, so that you will thrive on LinkedIn, you will thrive on email, you will thrive in all the things that you do, and you will be successful. So nail these 9 things. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Mindset, Marketing and Money Podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe so you get notified about future episodes.